Hey there, everyone. It's Julie Hutchison here from Think Be Do Leadership, and today it's Monday, so I thought we'd talk about something difficult. Something very useful, and that is what to do with those difficult people in your office, the ones that cause you the headaches. The ones that don't do what you want them to do, or complain all the time, or make life difficult for just about everybody else in the business. And maybe you have one of those people. If you do and you're listening live, then do tell me if you are able to. Don't name them necessarily, but if you're listening live, just say hi and let me know if you've ever experienced that. Maybe not right now. And if you're listening on the replay, then just put hashtag replay, and then I'll know. Then I'll check if there's any extra comments. So what we're talking about is, that horrendous situation where you've got people in your business, whether they are being this way with you as the boss or as a leader within the business, or they are doing it with everybody, and they're just one of those people that like a mood hoover or just awkward and obstinate and difficult, and they just make life hard for just about everybody in the organization. You know the ones, yeah. How do we deal with it? And even if you hate dealing with conflict, because what we find is that most of the time, most people are nice people. Would you agree? Yeah. And often when we're the boss, we know we've got to deal with some of this stuff, but actually it doesn't feel very nice. It doesn't feel very easy. It feels a little bit awkward, and we don't like fighting and we don't like conflict. So what happens on many, many occasions is that they become avoided, or they're avoided, and then they become old and hairy, then they become very difficult and very awkward, and then they become kind of like the way life is, and everybody kind of dances around it. But reality is this problem is just getting bigger and bigger and more uncomfortable. And when you don't deal with it, what it means is people will eventually, maybe not straight away, but eventually realize that you're not willing to deal with it, or nothing's been done, and they will choose to leave, or they will choose a different department, or they will choose to get away from this in a different way rather than you having dealt with it. And so we may think that we can stick our head in the sand like an ostrich and hope that it will go away. But as a mediator and a leadership coach, and working with teams who work really, really well and teams who don't work really, really well, it doesn't go away. It never goes away if you don't deal with it. And that might be in a very small way, or sometimes in a very big way. But you must deal with it, because it ends up big if you don't. Rarely, rarely go away. So if you've ever experienced anything like that, do let me know in the comments. Okay, so the other thing is, though, is that it's not just people leave. I mean, that costs a fortune, because you've got to go find somebody else. Then you've got to train that other person. And because the problem hasn't gone away, that you're probably going to experience it again, which means there's a vicious circle of the same thing happening over again. But not only that, the productivity of people is incredibly low, because who wants to work in that environment? Or even if you do want to work, how easy is it to work when you've got people that are being awkward, people that are being obstinate, difficult, and just making everybody lives a misery? We kind of dance around it, but we don't get things done. We're not collaborating, we're not helping each other, and therefore everything takes that little bit longer. Everything takes a little bit more money because it's taking longer, and therefore your productivity is low, and becomes even lower if it becomes a real problem, because people then can't even think straight. Yeah, because they're too busy thinking about what Bob did rather than thinking about what they need to be doing in their daily business. And therefore, it costs you and your business huge amounts of money, which is why people bring me in to solve their mediation problems. That's a whole another thing. So what I want to talk about today, though, is what do you do about that then? How do you deal with that? And I want to give you a little story, because some time ago, and I shan't name names, there was a time when I was called in to run a mediation between two ladies who individually were really nice people, but had not spoken, even though they sat next to each other in a control room, for 4 years. 4 years that had been danced around by the bosses, various. They had been huge amounts of sickness by each of those two ladies. by people around them because they were fed up with it, to be quite honest. Sickness, arguments, people weren't allowed to go in the tea room at the same time. People had to message one to get an answer to round to the one to go via somebody else. And this went on for 4 years and nobody dealt with it because they didn't know how to deal with it and they didn't know why they were not talking to each other. Because the funny thing is those two were actually, although they're being very difficult with each other now, had been very close friends before. So something had happened, yet nobody in the leadership team was willing to deal with it. They avoided it. They let it get really awkward. And the problem is once you stop talking or once things are awkward, it's really quite hard to get out of. I don't know if you experienced that, but it's actually quite hard to kind of like backtrack, because the thing that starts the issue, the thing that makes things awkward is often, some small thing that then wasn't dealt with properly and makes things worse. And then, of course, the reaction to that makes it a bigger problem. And then the reaction to that makes it an even bigger problem, again, without it being dealt with. And so if you want to deal with it, you've got to cut it quick. Or even if you haven't cut it quick, it's like, when's the best time to plant a tree? It's like, yeah, well, that was like 100 years ago. But if you haven't planted the tree, plant the tree now. So get in there and don't leave it to get even more difficult and more tricky, because it isn't going to go away. And so these two ladies hadn't had it dealt with. And it took a whole day of mediation to really uncover what was going on and deal with it in a way that enabled those two people to say why they were being awkward, why were they being difficult, how did they feel, and work out what was going on, and then deal with the really underlying issue. And at the end of that, those people were talking to each other, understanding each other, hugging to a degree. This is when you could hug. But that's not really exactly the point of this story. But the point of this is to say that when you've got difficult behavior and difficult people, there's often a reason underneath it that's driving that behavior. And it may not be a good way of dealing with it, but there's a reason for it. And if you can understand that reason for it, then you can deal with it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So what I want to talk about today then is, well, what do you do, and why should you get in there? So I want to talk about something called radical candor. I don't know if you've heard of that, but if you have, let me know. But radical candor, and I think, let me see if I can share my screen. So I think it was a lady called Kim Scott. She wrote a brilliant book, actually. I think it was called How to Be a Kick-Ass Boss. Let me share. Because what she said was, and I'm paraphrasing, yeah, there you go. So what she was talking about was this: look, if you've got these two axes of like whether we challenge directly or whether we're caring, what we realize is a lot of people are like a pretty caring people. Yeah. So they don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to challenge. And when we don't deal with conflict, it's because we don't want to, like, it's awkward, it's hard because we don't want to upset anybody, and we don't want to make ourselves upset either, because we have to deal with some stuff. But what that happens is if you over care and you over worry about about people, then you tend to have so much empathy that Kim Scott calls it ruinous empathy. Okay, so if you because you care so much, you don't challenge directly. So if you're on this axis and you care personally but don't challenge directly, it means you have so much empathy that it's ruinous to both you and the relationship. Yeah, if you don't care and you challenge directly, you could be obnoxious and aggressive. Yeah, so that doesn't work either, because nobody's going to open up to you, are they, if you are obnoxious and aggressive? So if you're overly challenging but not caring enough, you end up being obnoxiously aggressive. If you don't really care and you don't challenge directly, but you do a bit of the whole like passive aggressive stuff, what you can become is manipulative and what can we call manipulative insincerity. Can't even say it. But if you do take the fourth box, that green box there, which is to care personally but to challenge directly, that's what she would call radical candor. And I love this phrase because it's like, it's getting out there and doing what needs to be done, but doing it with a delicacy that oh, Katie's on here. She has a great book. She says, hello, Katie. Yes, you've read all the books I talk about. Maybe you should do these talks. It's a brilliant book. So radical candor, caring enough, doing it with empathy, but making sure that you still deal with the problem. Okay, so radical candor is about, as it says there, making impact, but without losing the human side, really caring about the impact that you're going to have, and doing what must be done, but doing it in a way that people are going to still respect you in the morning, let's say. Did I just say that? Apologies, anybody. You know what I mean. Anyway, so the first thing I want you to think about is, where do you sit? Okay, are you ruinously empathetic to people and therefore you don't really deal with the issue? Are you a little bit overly aggressive with people, or do you get fed up and end up in this passive aggressive, manipulative insincerity state? Or are you in radical candor? And if you're in any of those other three, please move yourself into radical candor. Okay, that's the first point. Point number one, that's what we do. Okay, she says, trying to stop sharing. Thank you. Right, so the next one I want to think about is understanding, as I mentioned before, when somebody is difficult, when somebody is awkward, or you see them as difficult and awkward, and often they are, but everybody is, and this is the point I'm trying to make. When somebody shows up in that way, then what we need to do is be really, really good at understanding what's going on underneath. And you know, I said about the two ladies. So they were awful to each other, if I'm honest. They were, you know, not speaking to each other, but they were just being very passive aggressive and making life difficult. But both of them had what they thought was a reason to do that. Now, they may have had a reason. Maybe what they actually physically did probably wasn't the best route, let's say, but there was something going on for them, something that made them feel that way, that they needed to do it. And this is what I want to talk to you about. And that's what I call the difference between the position that you state or that you show, like your outward, like this is how I am, and I'm, like we're talking about here, awkward or miserable or whatever. It's not what's really going underneath. Imagine like an iceberg. Okay. And what I'm talking about is that the position that you show is just this tip of the iceberg. And underneath, there's what's really going on. And underneath that is, what do you really need? Because people behave in a certain way because they need something. Their needs are not being met. They have some form of loss. Okay, classic, like, why am I in conflict? It's because I'm feeling bad because something is not working for me. I feel a loss. And so when you've got somebody who's behaving in a way that you're thinking, God, that's really annoying, we need to know why. Because then when we know why, suddenly that person, for a start, when you listen to them and you really hear what they say and you care about what's going on for them, you might find out that actually it's a response to something that they're experiencing, for a start, or it's a response to something that they think they are experiencing it in their own mind, but they think that actually happened. So what I'm trying to say is that they may have seen it in a different way to how somebody else has seen it. So a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of what somebody meant, or how somebody is, or who somebody is. Okay, so different viewpoints. But what you're looking for is that understanding of why they feel the way they feel, why they feel it's okay to do that, why they feel that is a way of being that they need to be. And when you then get down to it and when you listen, then you'll understand what they really need to be able to meet their needs, so that they don't feel this loss or this something's not working for them, so that they can then calm down, be different and be more open and able to communicate with people and not be demonstrating this awkward behavior that you might be seeing. Okay, but you can't do that if what you do is you just either you're overly aggressive and you just tell people what to do, but generally if you just don't hear what they've really got to say. So you have to get underneath, and it isn't always that easy as we can imagine, because actually they don't want to tell you at first. Excuse me, hang on. They don't want to tell you because they don't trust you. So you've got to get their trust, and the way you get their trust is to really show that you're actually willing to listen. Supposedly, radical candor, but with a bit of extra empathy here. Okay. And so when you listen, then you're going to hear not just the position, not just where I state that I am and I'm not going to, I've got my arms folded and I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, but you're going to understand the interests and the needs, what's going on and what they need. And when you do that, you can solve the problem. Okay. Then you can apply your radical candor and say, look, well, I get how you feel, and we need to solve that problem, but we need to change the way that you're actually demonstrating this behavior. And this is the impact. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. And that is, how do you say to somebody, when you do that, it's really annoying, for example. And so maybe you don't say that. Well, don't say that. What I mean is that what you want to say is, you want to say what's going on. So what's the behavior? What's the impact of their behavior? And what do you need instead? So we bring it again back to these needs. Okay. So the radical candor, I think if you apply this with a little mnemonic that you can use, which is BIN, behavior, impact, need, bin, then if you do that, what it means is you've got a structure to say to people that will help you to actually really challenge that in a really caring, non-judgmental way. So if you say, if we've got Katie on here, Katie, when you shouted at me, it made me feel embarrassed in front of people, or it made people feel embarrassed. And what we need is that you speak kindly to people. And you are aware of other people being around, for example. So behavior, impact, need is going to help you to be explicit without being judgmental, and what I call setting somebody up to succeed. Okay, so difficult people are really easy to set them up to fail, because you can just tell them how horrible they are, or you can do, if you get your get your big boy or girl pants on and you really want to deal with it, but it's a little bit too easy just to tell them what they did wrong. So when you want to do this, you want to set them up to succeed, because they're probably a nice person underneath. You probably just need to pull it out of them. So you need to understand what's going on for them, but you need to give them the reality, and that's where the radical candor comes in, of the impact that they're having on the situation. Katie says, who shouts in the office? That's me. Katie. So using radical candor, being out there and being bold, but caring personally, but then being specific, is actually going to help that situation and deal with that difficult person, and give them, that, I say a hat to, was it a hook your hat on? I can't remember the phrase now. But something to grab onto, so that they can understand, oh, okay, I see what you mean. When I did that, it didn't work. You need this instead. So you give them an out from their behavior. You're not like blocking them in and saying, oh, you're a terrible person. You're just giving them a way to actually show something differently and to demonstrate good behavior, let's say. So hopefully that helped. If you do those three things and you understand radical candor, you listen, and you listen for the needs. So you go from position to interest and needs. Then you apply very specifically what impact it's having. So we describe the behavior, the impact, and what you need to help them to set them up to succeed. Then you're going to be able to deal with that person, and you won't get the old and hairy, horrible thing that has never been away and it's been there for 10 years. And you're going to be able to deal with it, and it will lighten the load in your office. It will make things better. It will make people more productive, and it will mean that you in your business will be able to grow and have a great place to work, which means people are going to want to work there, which means that you're going to make more money, more profits, because you have productive people in your business. Well, that was meant to be 10 minutes, but it's been 18 minutes 38. So if you've been listening to me, thank you very much. And I will be very happy to receive any messages or questions from anybody who wants to find out more about applying this in the business. If you have a problem in your business and you've got a difficult person, an awkward situation, or a team that just damn well hates each other, then let's get it sorted out, because as a leader, you need to do that. You cannot let it get any older or hairier than it already is. Okay, this has been Julie Hutchison from Think, Be, Do Leadership. Please do message me and let me know if you need any more help on that, and I will be very happy to answer. Oh, here's Richard. Sorry. Richard says, what was it? When was the best time to plant a tree? I've never heard that one before. I love that analogy. Yeah, Richard, it's not mine, though. I don't know who it is. I never remember who said it in the first place. You can Google it. Katie's my Googler. Google it, Katie, if you're still here. Yeah, the best time to plant a tree is now, because it would have been 100 years ago, but you weren't there then or you didn't do it. So now is the time. Do not leave something just because you didn't do it already. Then now is the next best time. Yes, Richard, nice to see you as well. Thank you. So once again, if you have any issues that you want to talk about, or you are the leader and you want to work out how do I show that radical candor, how do I show up so that I can deal with people really well, then give me a shout and we'll get you the details of how you can join our program. Okay, have a lovely day, and I will see you all. Hopefully I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.